Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Saturday Conversations, a podcast where we can go a little bit deeper with so many folks familiar within the Pittsburgh sports scene. Our guest today is somebody, well, you've seen a lot more than me on TV. Robby Incmikoski, longtime and former Pirates broadcaster. Robbie worked as a sideline reporter for Pirates broadcast from 2013 to 2023, but he now has a really great book on the way. We're going to talk about it today. It's called Sacred Grounds, What Our Ballparks Mean to Us, along with Kyle Fager. It's an awesome coffee table photo book. Takes you inside all of Major League Baseball's 30 ballparks. Thought it would be perfect timing with the Pirates coming back to PNC Park this week to have Robbie on. Robbie, what's going on, my man? How are you?
Jason, thank you for having me on, my brother. I really appreciate the relationship you and I have been able to develop over the last decade or so, but specifically when you started covering the Pirates, I want to say it was 2018 or 19. When you became the beat writer, 2019. And, one of the coolest things about the job that I really want to tell you is I understand what baseball means to you and what it did between your father and you, and how much your father helped instill your love of the game of baseball and how you carry on your father's legacy through baseball. And having relationships is a big part of that. So I'm really thankful for you to do this and to have me on and talking about the book. Because honestly, man, that's what makes baseball so great. And my relationships are what enabled me to write this book.
No doubt. And we look forward to getting into all of that. We're going to talk a little bit about the current team. Also going to talk about what led Robbie to write a book, what that process is like, what baseball nuts who buy the book can expect. I want to talk a little bit, Robbie, about your experience in television, some of what you've done coming from South Philly to Pittsburgh and a couple stops in between. What's next for you personally? I do want to remind everybody watching and listening, though, about Greenewalt Roofing Company. When you think of great roofs, you think Greenewalt Roofing. With over 20 years of experience, Greenewalt knows your roof is your home's first line of defense from rain, wind, snow, and ice. That's why Greenewalt Roofing's standard for perfection is so important. You can trust that their team of experienced installers will treat your property like it's their own. When it comes to roof replacements, Greenewalt Roofing is Pittsburgh's only choice. Visit Greenewalt Roofing today or call 412-314-8882 to schedule your free estimate. PA contractor number 36262. All right, Robbie, let's knock out a couple questions about the current team just to get that stuff out of the way. You think this group finally figures it out? You've been around for a lot of the build. I know you're not around as much now. I'm sure you have some ties, relationships, emotional thoughts on all of it. Do you think they ultimately figure it out and get back to winning?
I do. And I know I'm in the minority. And maybe because I'm the forever optimist here, but I got to watch the first 4 years of the Derek Shelton, Ben Cherington regime. And look, man, we'd be doing a disservice to everyone watching to act like everything's rosy. Clearly, they're having a tough time. They get off to a slow start in Miami, drop 2 or 3 in Tampa Bay. And then, you go home to face a very potent Yankee lineup. But, the team, looking at it earlier, the build was kind of headed for these years, right? When you look at the way they traded all the big players they had before, Tyone, Bell, Musgrove, Adam Frazier was traded out and then obviously has returned since then. But when you look at what, when they were trying to acquire assets, yes, some of that worked out well. Some of it did not, clearly. And I think Ben and Shelty be the first guys to tell you that it didn't work out in their favor. But you have a generation they do in Paul Skenes. It's unfortunate that Jared Jones is going to miss a significant portion of the season here to begin, because when you're trotting out Skenes, Jones, Mitch Keller as your top 3 starters, there aren't too many more rotations are going to have 3 better starters than those guys. So I think once they get going offensively a little bit and when the pitching can hold up, obviously the back of the bullpen has been very shaky here to start the season. Hopefully they get that figured out as well. But I just think this team is too talented to not be competitive this year. I'm not saying they're going to win 80 or 90 or, 85, 90, 95 games, but they care. They work hard. I know some of the fundamental miscues are there, but when you're trotting out O'Neal Cruz, hopefully Brian Reynolds is okay long-term. Andrew McCutcheon's, a legacy player here in the city of Pittsburgh. And with those arms, I do think they at least have a chance. I know I'm in the minority, but I do believe they're going to turn this around. And I really hope they do. I really, really hope they're able to turn around and give this fan base something to cheer about, Jason.
Now, Robbie, I know your boyish good looks, and you look like you're in your 20s. You're not. You've actually been doing this for a number of years. See how long I can go with that. No, but you've been to different places. You've interviewed people, right? Like you've done stuff in Phoenix and Minnesota and Pittsburgh for a number of years. Right. I say all that to say Paul Skenes. Where does he rank in terms of not only dominant athletes, but just unique personalities? I think that sort of way transcends it. Belies. I don't know what the right word is, but he doesn't act like he's 22. That's what I'm trying to say.
You know who he reminds me of? That's a great question that you asked, because I never, in full disclosure, I never worked with Paul Skenes. I haven't met him, but many of the people I've been around work with him every day, and a lot of people that I know, and I've asked about him. And it was put to me by somebody in the organization that said, if you meet Paul Skenes for the first time and you're just having some chatter with him for a little bit, you are going to be the first person that breaks eye contact, not him. That's how this guy was raised. That's how this guy was brought up. You look at his background in the Air Force, obviously, transferred to LSU and dominated from there. But when you look at what this guy brings to the table, the way he carries himself, I saw that recent quote where he talked about, hey, no offense to the 2013 team. I knew exactly what he meant. Yep. This fan base is starving for a winner. And if we're the ones to do it, man, we are going to have some fun. And that brought me back to my first year covering the Pirates, which was 2013, the year of the Johnny Cueto game. So when you look at it, you think about it and you're like, man, this is the guy that can lead this team back into that sphere of baseball and make baseball relevant again here in the city of Pittsburgh. So honestly, I covered the Twins for 4 years, 2009 to 12, came to Pittsburgh 13 to 23, and then last year, 2024, with the Texas Rangers. Although I was a backup, I worked a little less than half a season, so I was not the full-time guy there. But when you look at the Rangers coming off a World Series, it was Corey Seager, Adolis Garcia. They had some big pitchers. Max Scherzer was there. He was hurt during the World Series run, but still a dominant presence. Corey Seager, World Series MVP, two-time World Series MVP. Skenes, I would take Skenes over Seager. Anybody that's been in a Pirates uniform, in terms of, look, Andrew McCutchen is an all-time great Pirate. Don't ever take anything away from that. But Kutch will admit he's not like the loudest guy in the clubhouse. Now, I don't know what Skenes is like in the clubhouse because I'm not in it with him, so I can't speak to that. But everything I hear and everything I read that comes out of his mouth makes me fired up to be a Pirates fan. The only guy that really compares to that is Joe Mauer, who just made the Hall of Fame. My first year with the Twins was 2009, the last year of the Metrodome, when Joe won the MVP award. And Joe was a quiet guy, too. He wasn't like a real vocal guy in that Twins clubhouse, but he's a guy that led by example. And I think when you watch Skenes, the way he goes about his work, every time he takes to the mound, every time you have a chance to win when that guy has the ball in his hand. And I can only Joe Mauer, really, maybe Justin Morneau a little bit, compares to a guy like Paul Skenes when you talk about presence of one individual being the face of a franchise.
Yeah, that's good perspective, Robbie. I like that. Joe Mauer is a great comp, but it's just so mature. There's a lot to like about the kid. And again, we could talk a lot about the current team. I don't want to do that either because I want to get into this book. I think it's a great concept. I think it's going to be a fascinating read, something any baseball fan's going to want to have on their table. So, all right.
Thank you.
What led you? Well, I didn't say it was yet. I said I think. I still have some.
Give it time. We got till September.
I didn't read it too closely yet. I mean, I've checked out your website. I've checked out the samples. I've checked out what's out there. I didn't render, and I'm just kidding. But no, what led you to want to write a book, though? Where did we go from TV guy to published author?
It's crazy. It's honestly, it's freaking crazy. There are times where I can't even fathom it myself, Jay, that I'm actually doing this. So I'll give you a quick backstory. Back in the offseason, 2016, leading into 2017, the Pirates were getting ready to have opening day at Fenway Park. And I've always seen the flag drop down the green monster in left field at times. And you see, just how cool Fenway Park is. And over the years, I have always loved ballparks. I love ballparks. I love being in them. I love checking them out. I love the unique features that every ballpark has. So I went and bought a digital camera, actually it sits right here, my little workstation here in my house. So I bought this little Sony digital camera, And I wanted something small enough that would fit into my pocket and fit into my bag everywhere I went, because at some point, Jay, I knew I was not going to be making my living traveling to all 30 ballparks, making a decent living, being an announcer for a Major League Baseball team. I knew at some point in time it had a shelf life. Obviously, that came at the end of last season. So I figured, you know what? While I'm still traveling the Major League Baseball circuit, let's take a bunch of pictures. And honestly, the only thing I really had in mind at the time was maybe, go to like a photo site, and create a book on my own that I would just have on my own coffee table. And, maybe, one night, like one winter when I just had a bunch of idle time, find all these pictures and take like 50 or 100 and just make a photo book on each chapter and turn to one large book where I could just look around and just flip through the memories of each place. So I just took a bunch of pictures of all areas throughout the ballpark, except for the clubhouse. Clubhouse was off limits. I didn't take any pictures inside any clubhouse. But once you stepped out, I took a lot of pictures of the tunnel walking to the dugout. Pictures of what the bat racks look like, what the dugout bathrooms look like. I know it sounds ridiculous,
but
there's
it's
a unique
true.
story. There's a unique story behind each place, right? You look at Oakland. I once watched a player. I'm not going to say who, but I will say it was between 2009 and 2012. When I was in Oakland working with the Twins, I watched a player strike out. He was frustrated when he got into the dugout and he slammed his helmet as soon as he got in. The helmet landed in the toilet because it was so close to the dugout steps that the bathroom was right there.
What did he do, Robbie? Did he pick it out and like?
Well,
you have to go to a new helmet at that point, right?
And then a trainer walked over with a towel very quickly, and I really hope the guy in front of him flushed before he went out exited the dugout.
I was going to say,
but
if it's a clean toilet, I guess.
I'm not going to mention his name because if I did, he'd probably laugh anyways. He's not playing the big leagues anymore. But it was a hilarious story that lived on the rest of my time with the Twins when he was there. But just silly stuff like that. And you know this, Jay. You've been around baseball and covered baseball enough that there are so many undercovered parts of the game, right? And that's what we tried to do in this book, is explore the stories behind the stories. But anyways, back to the original idea was I kept traveling with a camera, and I would go to the ballpark about an hour early most days just to take pictures when the place was empty. So I walked around the concourse, took pictures of like artwork and retired numbers, plaques, cool bars, food stands, everything. I took pictures of what each dugout looks like, what the bat rack looks like, what the benches look like. Because I always thought it was cool. Like, what does the hitting cage look like? What does the tee look like, for players to take, either dry hacks or, with the assistant hitting coach during the game to get ready for a pinch hitting appearance. Yeah. There are so many aspects of the game of baseball that are undercovered. And I thought to myself, instead of doing a photo book for myself, why don't I do one for the people and basically bring a lot of the hits, in-game hits and pre-game features and weekly show features, all the stuff we did. Why don't we bring that to life a little bit and just tell a few stories? So I met with Kyle Fager, who is writing the book with me along with Anna Hall and Stephen Knezovich. It's a 4-person group that I hired at Ascender Book Services, and they do a tremendous job so far. And we talk every day for the last couple months, and we really are cranking it out to get this book to the publisher to have it ready for a mid to late September release. I just started looking through my Rolodex. I'm like, who do I know around Major League Baseball connected with each ballpark? And I realized over time, Jay, was that I've been very, very fortunate to have a lot of relationships around the game. Yeah. So I started looking at big moments at each ballpark and thought, who do I know that's connected to it? So I'll give you one example. In Baltimore, the most famous Oriole, let's say in Camden Yards, take Brooks Robinson, obviously, is one of the all-time greats ever in the history of baseball. But when you think of Baltimore Orioles in the last 30 years, who comes to mind?
Cal Ripken.
Bingo. It's the first name that comes to mind. It's exactly right. The biggest thing Cal Ripken is known for is what?
His consecutive games.
The streak. Right. Yep. So you know what I did? I'm reaching out. So obviously we're not going to get Cal.
I'm glad I got those right.
Yes, really have to know your baseball to know that one. But no, but you know exactly what I mean. So you think of Cal Ripken, you think of the streak, right? The Aberdeen Ironbirds, the short season team, bears the name of Cal Ripken because he's from Aberdeen, Maryland. So we've all heard from Cal talking about the streak, but I'm chasing down and about to get a commitment from the guy who started at third base next to him the night Cal broke the record, Jeff Hewson, former Major League infielder. What is it like from his perspective? You think of Barry Bonds when he broke the Major League Baseball home run record back in August of 2007 in San Francisco. Well, we're not going to talk to Bonds about that, but I spoke to the pitcher who gave up that record-setting home run and
Mike
got
Bassick?
the story. Mike
Yep.
Bassick, my
Yep.
broadcast partner, talks about what life was like for him since giving up that home run. Another random story, you think of 2002 at the Major League Baseball All-Star Game, it ended in a tie. Led to a big change in the rules in Major League Baseball. The winner of the All-Star Game, the winning side had home field advantage in the World Series. Now, obviously, that was changed a couple of years ago, but still for a long time had a big part in it. I interviewed the crew chief, Tim Sheeta, a Minnesota native who worked the first ever game at Target Field, and talked to him about his discussion with Bud Selig and what that was like in those moments, deciding to call the game a tie. So I think you have an idea where this is going. So it's a lot of stories behind the story in baseball because there's such an many undercovered aspects, I should say, of the game of baseball. And we explore that in this book. So if you're an avid to diehard baseball fan, you are going to love it. Tons of pictures and tons of stories behind the scenes.
There's a lot of fun presentation here too. The book has a QR code in each
Yes.
chapter, right, Robbie? It's going to link to your website,
Yes.
robbyinc.com. You can
Yes.
find even more photos, obviously, than are in the printed book, along with the whole, full conversations with each interviewee. There's going to be separate blog posts. There's a fan interactive photo component of it, a podcast. It's not just a book. There's a lot more multimedia wise. And just one more time, you can order it, robbyinc.com. And Robbie, correct me if I'm wrong, the physical book launch is in mid-September, but you can pre-order right now, right?
Yes, thank you. Yeah, thank you for the opportunity to say this, Jay. So it's RobbyInc.com. And you could cruise sample pages. We have 3 sample chapters out there. PNC Park, of course, Yankee Stadium, and Dodger Stadium. So those 3 are out there, and you're going to see the story. So for Dodger Stadium, obviously, Vin Scully, who I consider the greatest announcer in the history of baseball, and I think a lot of people would agree with that. Obviously, Vin passed a couple of years ago, but I interviewed Vin's right-hand man, Boyd Robertson, who stood about a foot away from Vin for 26 years or 28 years, over 2.5 decades. He was Vin Scully's right-hand man. And we talked about what it was like to stand 1 foot away from the greatest sports announcer in the history, the greatest announcer in the history of baseball, and what that experience is like. So he gives a firsthand account of what it was like working day in and day out with Vin Scully. PNC Park, Clint Hurdle talks about the wild card game and what that was like back in 2013. I interviewed the Renegades of the Rotunda, Chris Miller. He talks about what that night was like for him as he went as a fan, and how much fun and what that meant to him. So a lot of that kind of stuff. And yes, the QR codes are going to be in each chapter. So each book is a chapter, and that's going to lead to a site. So think about it, right? When you're in a book, there's only so many pages, so many words you can fit onto a page. But these interviews are so good, and they are long. There's no doubt they're long conversations. But if you are into baseball, you scan that QR code, and it takes you to each ballpark site, and you're going to see at least 100, 200 more pictures of every ballpark, access photos, again, everything to give you a tour of all 30 ballparks from the comfort of your own home. And then you could read longer stories. I mean, the Clint Hurdle interview, I can only take so many quotes from Clint to put into the book, but then he really goes into detail. He went into detail about what the exact moment was like when he got fired by the Colorado Rockies, on how his manager, Dan O'Dowd, asked him to come to his house. And Dan answered the door, and Clint said, "I guess we're not here to talk about where we're hitting Tulo in the lineup tonight." And he was like, "Unfortunately, Clint, no, I have to let you go." And Clint talks about that. He's very open and honest about that. A lot of insider stuff that you just don't have time to cover in the context of a TV broadcast because you have a game going on. So we're trying to recreate TV as close as we can in book form with photos and stories.
Love it. I want to get into a little bit more of the inside, what Robbie saw. We're going to do some superlatives. I'm going to put him on the spot a little bit in the second segment. But first, a message from the Bradenton Area Convention and Visitors Bureau.
Embrace the laid-back charm of island life while sinking your toes in the sand and discovering real, authentic Florida in the Bradenton area. Unspoiled beauty and pristine beaches, a vibrant waterfront downtown energized by local arts and culture. Fresh, Floridian cuisine with a flourish of rich history, and friendly locals ready to welcome you to this preserved paradise on Florida's Gulf Coast. Plan your visit today at BradentonGulfIslands.com.
And welcome back to Saturday Conversations. We're chatting with Robby Incmikoski about his new book. Robbie, I'm excited about this thing, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Sacred Grounds, what our ballparks mean to us. I have some, I don't know, they're overly simple questions, but I'm curious. Of the ballparks that you've been to, which do you like the best?
You know, everybody asks that. I'm going to say Baltimore. Besides PNC, PNC Park's number one, and I don't think there's a close second. Okay. But Baltimore, as I've gone through this project, has really become my second favorite. The way it's designed, the way it stood the test of time. If you walk along Utah Street by the warehouse, they have little brass plaques marking where each home run ball landed, who hit it, and the date and the team they were with. And the food is great. The history is great. Babe Ruth Museum is just beyond left field. One of the coolest places a baseball fan can go. What's
the quirkiest ballpark? For me, it's probably Fenway, and some of the like nooks in Wrigley Field are different, but I don't know. What about you?
You know, Oakland was crazy. Oakland was wild. You were so far from home plate. You're buried in this corner with this chair that couldn't fetch you $5 at a yard sale, you know, and like, it's just, you know, players and fans shared a tunnel walking from the visitors clubhouse to the expensive fancy seats that they had there. The foul territory was so deep. The elevator took forever. Like it was just wild. Possum in the booth. Oakland was quirky. Dodger Stadium's impossible to navigate. That's hard. Fenway Park, the walkway. Did you ever walk like, you know, beyond that first set of seats?
Yes.
You have to turn sideways to walk through with other fans. That's how old it is.
We had to do that. I think you got a jump start, but we would have to file our stories and then like cross the whole concourse to get down to the club. And this isn't a complaint. This isn't a sports writer complaining.
No,
I know you shared the same thing. It's just logistically, that's very hard.
and we're in a camera well with like a bunch of photographers, still photographers, videographers. The game camera is in there. And you're just sitting there like this. And every time you move, you feel like you're bothering somebody. Excuse me. But it's Fenway Park and the fans are right behind you, like right behind me. It was crazy. So Fenway Park, Wrigley Field is a little bit challenging, but they've adjusted that in the last like 6-7 years. But there are some crazy experiences around baseball.
No doubt. Who was one of your better interviews? Who was one of your favorite interviews, I should say?
Oh, man, so many. Michael Kadire, former Minnesota Twin, Colorado Rocky, New York Met, has a great story in Seattle. The Twins were there when Ken Griffey Jr. abruptly retired and drove back to Florida from Seattle. And he has the lineup card from the last game that Ken Griffey played. He tells that story. That was really cool. Interviewed unique stuff. Gabby Sanchez, interesting point. He played for the Pirates for a couple of years, but he's a Miami native, played for the Marlins. And when Marlins Park opened, remember they had that fish tank behind home plate.
Yep.
And Gabby lived in Miami in the offseason, so the team president called him in to throw balls at the fish tank as hard as he could with the media there to show that it's not going to get broken by a foul ball and, you know, we're not going to have fish all over the infield dirt. That was interesting. Got some really cool stories. Boyd Robertson is one you can read right now, Vince Scully's right-hand man. We've done right now, as the time of this recording, we've done 92 interviews for the book. We're going to be at about 110, 120 when it's done. So Larry, here's one. You want to talk about interesting? Larry Doby Jr. His father broke the American League color barrier. And Larry is one of the most generous humans you'd ever meet in your entire life. But I asked him what it was like being raised by a guy who broke the American League color barrier just shy of 3 months after Jackie Robinson broke the game's color barrier. And he talked about how his father preached to him how good his teammates were to him, as opposed to what he had to overcome. So he talks about those types of lessons on how people should be treated, because that's how his father taught him by the good teammates that he was treated by.
Wow. That's cool, man. That's really cool.
It's a lot of insider stuff. Yeah.
Yep. All right. In our third segment, I want to talk to Robbie a little bit about his former job, TV, what's next for him. There's a bunch of ins and outs to what Robbie used to do. Maybe he will do again. Who knows? But I first want to remind you that this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder and Associates as well. Law firms come and go, but what law firm has been here in Western PA fighting for injury victims for over 40 years? Edgar Snyder and Associates. What firm has a staff of over 130 people who live and work here? Edgar Snyder and Associates. Law firms come and go, but Edgar Snyder and Associates is a name you can always trust. So remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. If you've been hurt in an accident, call them at 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit edgarsnyder.com. They're available 24/7. All right, Robbie. So you grew up in South Philly. You go to Temple, cover the Twins from 9 to 12, the Pirates from 13 to 23, covered the Rangers in 24. I love this. You got your start as a ball boy in the training room with the Philadelphia Eagles. You've done reporting for the Coyotes, Suns, Timberwolves, Wild, University of Minnesota hockey, all kinds of stuff. Is sideline reporting what you always wanted to do, or was there a previous motivation there? I think there was a one career path, and then you veered somewhere else, correct?
Yeah, that's right. No, it wasn't something I initially set out to do. I always wanted to be a hockey play guy because hockey was my number one sport that I grew up watching, playing, everything. And I love hockey. It's my passion. I watch it all the time, always watched it during the off season. But the reality of the situation was there's only so many play-by-play jobs and nobody ever leaves them. So an opportunity popped up when I was a minor league hockey announcer for 2 years, 06, 07, 07, 08, the Arizona Sundogs, formerly the Central Hockey League. And then I got an opportunity to be a reporter at Fox Sports Arizona to do a couple Phoenix Suns and Arizona Diamondbacks games out there. Had some relationships with people who were very good to me at that station. Jody Jackson, who's in the book, talking about Arizona. She went out on maternity leave, and I had a chance to fill in for her for a handful of games, and I caught the bug, and that was kind of where everything got started. Then the Twins job opened. My boss in Arizona made the call to the boss in Minnesota, went in for an interview, and that's where my career got started in baseball. So it's kind of crazy what I plan to do versus what I end up doing. And I ended up spending 16 years as a reporter and host in Major League Baseball, which was pretty cool.
That's incredible. So what are you doing now? Do you want to get back into it? Or are you a full-time author? Are you going to pursue this path?
No. This is
one and done.
No. I don't know how you writers do it, man. I tell you something, man.
I didn't write a book.
I spent 16 years. Yeah, but you write for a living. I spent 16 years as a Major League Baseball announcer. And I worked my ass off at that job. Sorry if I'm not allowed to say that, but I worked my tail off at that job. I've never worked as hard as I'm working right now. I go to bed 2, 3 a.m. every night because I'm sitting on my computer working, and I go to bed when my eyes get tired. So it's kind of crazy. It's crazy what this process is like. So I'm just doing this right now. I'm looking at a couple, quote unquote, regular jobs to see what that life is like, to have a little bit of a regular schedule. I don't know how well I'm going to do because I'm used to being a night owl and I'm used to being event driven as opposed to, day driven like most Americans are. But right now I'm just working on the book, going to do a podcast, but that's not necessarily what I'm looking to do for a living. I think the book has a chance to do pretty well. And if it does, I'm going to take my time and promote it and enjoy this process because we only live once. But yeah, I really don't know, man. I want to get into opinion radio because when you work in TV, you can really never offer your opinion because you work for a rights holder. So you're pretty much clamped down by what you can and can't say. And it's not that I have these big, strong opinions or going to light myself on fire, but we just had to be pretty straight and narrow with what we did and get people to root for the team. So to answer your question, man, I really don't know what the hell I'm going to do next after this book. I really don't know.
Well, I can't wait to see it. I can't wait to see when this thing comes out. And it's out now, but like the physical copy coming out and see where that takes you. It's going to be a lot of fun. So I wanted to ask you this. I actually wanted to ask you this. And there's two parts to it. It's fun. Well, and in a fun way. When I think of you doing TV stuff, I think of you hunting down the players' parents and, these fun, lighthearted stories. Tell me about that process. What does that include? Like going to find the parents? Do you have any like epic fails from finding people's parents? Do you miss doing that? Being in the seats with loved ones? Like, talk to me a little bit about that part of your job.
Yeah, that part's cool. That might be the coolest part of the job, to be honest with you, is the relationships you build with families, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, kids, wives, everybody. It's incredible when you get a chance to really experience what the process and what the journey is like of becoming a big leaguer, because you see it from a different perspective, right? When we watch a game, right, like everybody knows what they do on the field because you have a play-by-play guy and an analyst breaking all that down. And when just kind of take ourselves out of our job for a second, Jay, people root for who they like. So my job was to make people like them, right? We're broadcasting to Pirates fans. So my job was to humanize these guys and basically show those sitting at home and the kids and the fellow baseball parents out there that, hey, these parents are no different from you. That kid was a Little League player just like your kid is or was a Little League player, a softball, a baseball player, whatever it is. It's just that their kid happens to be in the top 0.0001% at playing baseball, and they make it to the highest level of the game. But the journey that they traveled is very similar to any other player. You played at Westminster College. You know what that's like playing as a Little Leaguer. I played as a Little Leaguer, but I wasn't that good, so I didn't pursue it at any level above youth baseball. So it's interesting to do it. And I see people, running their mouths about parents and their look. Here comes Robbie, and they get like, how they feared me coming. You know what? They freaking loved when I came up to them, because you know what? We were talking about their kid reaching the highest level of the game. Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I get all the little losers on X that want to, chirp me and, oh, it's so hard. Yeah, it's so hard talking about your kid playing Major League Baseball. Give me a goddamn break. So it's interesting when you see this story and you hear moms and dads cry as their kids are playing baseball on a major league field for the first time. That's cool stuff, man. People love that more than they dislike it. And honestly, it was one of the coolest parts of the job, And let me tell you one more example and I'll shut up. Trevor Williams' father, Richard Williams.
Oh, right? Yeah, I remember this.
He was given 60 to 90 days to live in 2015 unless he underwent a very aggressive form of chemotherapy and radiation. And here he is watching his kid pitch for 9 years, and he travels to every start that he can get to, no matter where it is across the country. And I saw him last year in Texas when Trevor pitched against the Rangers for the Washington Nationals.
Baseball has such a cool culture, man. It really does. And I'd be lying if I said if I didn't miss it. I do.
There's nothing like it. That's what I miss the most are the relationships.
I know. And being around it and the type of people you encounter and how everybody, it's hard as hell. It really is. And there's sort of a badge of honor or something that like we all wear, that you put up with it. And we all have some form of suck to our day, and you get over it. You love the game. I could go on and on, but that's what I think is really fascinating and awesome about the book that you're putting out. Like, it captures that. It captures the essence of like why this sport is addictive, why we love it, why people continue to follow the Pirates. They drive them crazy. They lose. People get mad. They email their favorite columnist and yell at them or whatever. Like, people get angry, but it all comes from a place of just wanting this darn team to be good, or just wanting this darn experience to be positive.
And look, man, like, I'm not saying that hockey players or basketball players or football players aren't great people, because certainly they are. I've met some amazing people in those sports. I take nothing away from them. But there's nothing like baseball, because it's every day. The families are there. The kids are there. The brothers and sisters are there. You're there. You're on the bus. You're on the plane. You're at the hotel. You're in the clubhouse. You're at the ballpark. You see them in every way imaginable. You see them more than you see your family. So you develop these organic relationships, whether it's with trainers, equipment managers, coaches, players, their families. There's nothing like baseball. And I'm just trying to relay those relationships and let the fans of baseball really kind of experience what you and I have been fortunate enough to experience.
Robby Incmikoski, make sure you pick up his book, Sacred Grounds, What Our Ballparks Mean to Us, written alongside one Kyle Fager. Who real quick, I'm sorry, I've shorted Kyle. Who is Kyle, and how did he get involved?
So, he's great. He's wonderful. Think of the complete 180 of me. I don't shut the hell up. I gotta almost borderline shake him a little bit to get him to talk and get amped up. Kyle Fager is an author, lives in McCandless. He's from Chicago, grew up a lifelong Cubs fan. He got married and has been living in Pittsburgh for north of 2 decades. He's got 3 daughters and just a wonderful guy. Heads up the team at Ascender Book Services. Stephen Knezevich, based out of the South Hills of Bethel Park, is handling the website. Anna Hall is a graphic designer in Seattle. So these are 3 behind-the-scenes people who are working with me, because, again, they're professionals. I'm not. I talked on TV for a living. These people produce books for a living. So Kyle's just an author that loves baseball. He's written about 130 books in his life, and a lifelong author, and loves baseball, and he's loving this project just like I am.
Very good. Pre-sale is going on right now, robbyinc.com. Physical book launch, again, is in mid-September. You can purchase it now, obviously, for pre-sale. Robbie, thanks so much for doing this, man. It's been a pleasure.
Jason, you're the best, man. Thank you for having me on.
All right. Make sure you like and subscribe on this channel. You can get this content and so much more Saturday conversations every week, a bunch of Pirates content throughout the week, of course, from our Post-Gazette North Shore Drive and YouTube channels. For Robby Incmikoski, I'm Jason Mackey. Talk to you next week.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all of the sports coverage the Post-Gazette has to offer, visit post-gazette.com.